The year 2087 marked humanity's final surrender to the rhythm that had governed Earth for millennia. What began as a voluntary optimization program quickly evolved into something far more profound, a biological schism that would redefine human civilization forever. Dr. Elena Vasquez pressed her palm against the observation deck's cool glass, her breath fogging the window. "We could still stop this," she whispered to herself, finger hovering over the emergency override console. Below, the last mixed-schedule city transformed before her eyes, but she knew one command could reverse the temporal locks. Her hand trembled. After 40 years studying circadian rhythms, this moment would define her legacy. The streets pulsed with an otherworldly choreography as two distinct populations began their ancient dance of avoidance. Elena could hear it through the glass, the soft hiss of hydraulic barriers rising, the whisper of air recyclers switching from day blend to night mix, the distant hum of a million circadian regulators synchronizing like mechanical hearts. Neon signs flickered to life as the nocturnes emerged from their climate-controlled sanctuaries, their pale skin luminescent under artificial moonlight. Meanwhile, the Solarians retreated into their dawn-facing towers, preparing for tomorrow's solar embrace. The divide wasn't just temporal, it was becoming cellular, psychological, spiritual. Families were choosing sides, lovers were synchronizing their circadian modifications, and children were being born into a world where they would never truly know half of humanity. Elena pressed her palm against the cool glass, feeling the vibration of the city's dual heartbeat. Below, automated transport pods switched from day-bright whites to deep amber glows, marking the precise moment when one world ended and another began. The Great Divide had begun not with conflict, but with choice. Maya Chen clutched her temporal transit pass, standing at the threshold between worlds in Neo-Tokyo's Central Exchange. Her supervisor's words echoed, "Choose now, day contract or night contract, no more switching." Above her, diurnal districts gleamed with polished chrome. Below, the nocturnal undercity beckoned with its ethereal glow. The city's two distinct rhythms pulsed around her. She had minutes to decide which heartbeat would become her own. Above ground, the diurnal districts gleam with polished chrome and glass towers that stretch toward the sun. Solar panels glitter like scales on every surface, harvesting the precious daylight hours. The streets buzz with purposeful energy as day dwellers conduct their business in climate-controlled environments, their pale skin protected by UV filtering canopies and specialized clothing. Meanwhile, 50 meters below, the nocturnal undercity thrives in perpetual twilight. Bioluminescent gardens cast ethereal blue and green glows across subterranean plazas, while artificial aurora displays dance across domed ceilings. Night dwellers move through these spaces with enhanced night vision, their eyes adapted to detect the subtlest variations in darkness. Their architecture embraces curves and flowing forms, optimized for sound rather than sight. Between these two worlds lies the twilight zone, a narrow band of transition spaces where the two populations briefly intersect during shift changes. Here, in these liminal moments, the city's dual nature becomes most apparent, revealing the profound transformation that has reshaped human civilization. In the sterile corridors of the Geneva Institute for Circadian Research, Dr. Elena Vasquez peers into a microscope, her weathered hands steady despite 40 years of studying humanity's greatest mystery. The cellular samples before her tell a story that began 3 centuries ago, when the Great Schism rewrote human biology itself. Under magnification, she observes the telltale markers: elongated pineal glands in the nocturnals, their melatonin production cycles inverted and amplified. Their retinal cells show heightened rhodopsin density, granting them extraordinary night vision that rivals nocturnal predators. Conversely, the diurnals display enlarged suprachiasmatic nuclei, their internal clocks locked to solar rhythms with mechanical precision. Their skin cells produce vitamin D at accelerated rates, while their cortisol patterns spike with dawn's first light. "We're witnessing real-time evolution," Elena whispers to her colleague, her voice tinged with wonder and dread. Dr. Martinez looks up from his own samples, his nocturnal adapted eyes reflecting the lab's blue light. "My daughter asked me yesterday if she'll still be human when she grows up," he says quietly. "What was I supposed to tell her?" Elena's hand freezes on the microscope dial. She doesn't have an answer. The blood samples before them suggest the question itself might be wrong. The data suggests these aren't mere adaptations, they're fundamental genetic divergences. Blood samples reveal distinct hormone cascades, neural pathway formations that differ by as much as 12% from baseline humanity. The implications are staggering. Two species emerging from one, shaped by nothing more than when they choose to wake. In the distance, Geneva's twin skylines pulse with separate rhythms, one preparing for slumber, the other stirring to life. The Solarians had become something magnificent and terrible. Their skin gleamed like polished bronze, absorbing and reflecting sunlight with supernatural efficiency. Veins of gold traced beneath their translucent flesh, pulsing with concentrated solar energy. Their eyes burned with an inner fire that never dimmed. Pupils contracted to pinpoints against the perpetual brightness of their domain. In the great solar cities, crystalline spires rose like frozen flames toward the sky, their surfaces designed to capture and amplify every photon. The architecture itself seemed alive, responding to the sun's movement with subtle shifts and adjustments. Here, in chambers carved from pure quartz, the Solarians conducted their endless rituals of light worship. Children were born glowing, their first cries harmonizing with the solar frequencies that powered their civilization. They learned to photosynthesize before they learned to walk, drawing sustenance directly from the sun's rays. Sleep had become obsolete. Instead, they entered meditative trances during the brief twilight hours, their bodies continuing to process solar energy even in rest. Dr. Sarah Kim watched from behind protective glass as her former colleague approached. Marcus had been gone 6 months for the solar adaptation. Now his skin gleamed like polished bronze, veins of gold pulsing beneath translucent flesh. When he smiled at her, she flinched. His laugh crackled with the intensity of solar flares. "Sarah," he said, reaching toward the barrier between them. Even through the reinforced glass, she could feel the heat radiating from his fingertips. "You barely recognize me, do you?" She wanted to lie, but couldn't. This was Marcus. Yet something magnificent and terrible had replaced the man she'd once loved. They had transcended humanity's limitations, but at the cost of humanity itself. In the eternal darkness beyond the dome barriers, the Umbrans have evolved into something extraordinary. Their cities pulse with bioluminescent arteries, veins of blue and violet light threading through obsidian towers that scrape against the starless sky. These are not the pale, weakened descendants one might expect, but apex guardians shaped by millennia of darkness. Their enhanced retinas catch wavelengths invisible to their solar cousins. their skin bearing subtle luminescent patterns that shift with emotion and communication. The night cities hum with a different energy. Geothermal cores and captured stellar radiation power their civilization, while massive atmospheric processors work tirelessly to maintain their carefully balanced ecosystem. Here, in the perpetual midnight, innovation thrives in ways the day dwellers never imagined. Umbran architects craft with shadow and light as their medium, creating structures that seem to breathe with living darkness. Their children play in phosphorescent gardens where engineered flora blooms in impossible colors, adapted to flourish without ever seeing a sun. This is not merely survival in absence of light. It is mastery over it. A civilization that has learned to paint with darkness itself and found beauty in what others would consider void. Maya pressed her palm against the reinforced glass of the twilight viewing platform, watching the city transform below as the great exchange began. Somewhere in the descending darkness, David would be stirring from his day's sleep, preparing for his nocturnal shift at the power plant. They had exactly 23 minutes, the brief window when both day and night dwellers could safely coexist in the filtered twilight zones. Her wrist device chimed softly. Temporal sync established. Subject approaching Platform 7 Alpha. Through the amber-tinted glass, she spotted his familiar silhouette emerging from the night sector's transit tube, his pale complexion already adapting to the reduced light. They had been meeting like this for months, stolen moments between worlds, their love existing only in the liminal spaces where day kissed night. "The council won't approve our genetic compatibility assessment," he had whispered during their last encounter, his breath fogging the protective barrier between them. Maya pressed her forehead against the glass. "Then we don't ask for approval," she said, her voice barely audible. David's pale hand traced her outline through the barrier. "Maya, the genetic incompatibility could kill you. Your circadian system would reject the synchronization serum." She looked up at him, tears reflecting the amber twilight. "What if I'm willing to risk it? What if 23 minutes for the rest of our lives isn't enough?" Maya knew he was right. Intertemporal relationships threatened the delicate biological balance that kept their species alive. Yet here they stood, two hearts beating in different time zones, proving that love could transcend even the most fundamental divisions of human evolution. The financial markets never sleep, but now they truly couldn't. Trading floors hummed with activity around the clock as the Solari dominated daylight transactions while the Nocturnals controlled overnight markets. What began as scheduling convenience evolved into fierce economic territoriality. Solar-powered corporations thrived under the Solari's daylight dominance, their stock prices soaring during market hours when natural light fueled both energy grids and trading confidence. Meanwhile, the Nocturnals carved out the night economy, emergency services, entertainment, security, and the burgeoning artificial lighting industry that kept their world illuminated. Janet Morrison stared at the resignation letter on her screen. The 15th this month. Her day shift staff were quitting rather than work alongside the Nocturnal team. "They make me nervous," complained Tom from accounting, glancing at the tinted partition separating their workspace from the night crew. "Those eyes, they see too much." Through the glass, Janet watched the Nocturnal customer service team handling the overnight trades with unsettling efficiency, their pale hands dancing across holographic interfaces. She had built this bank on Unity, but biology was tearing it apart one employee at a time. The Solari preferred traditional banking hours, while Nocturnal clients demanded full service during their active periods. Currency exchanges fluctuated wildly as each faction's economic activities created distinct market rhythms. Late-night cryptocurrency trading became almost exclusively nocturnal territory, while renewable energy stocks were Solari strongholds. Supply chains fractured along temporal lines. Restaurants, retail stores, and service industries faced impossible choices: cater to one group's schedule and lose the other's business, or attempt exhausting 24-hour operations with segregated workforces. The economy, like humanity itself, was splitting into two interconnected but increasingly separate worlds, each operating on its own biological clock. Beneath the fractured surface world, an entirely different civilization flourishes in the perpetual twilight of underground caverns. The subterraneans have carved out a realm where time holds no meaning, where bioluminescent fungi provide ethereal illumination, and where the ancient divisions between day and night people seem like distant memories. Their cities sprawl through interconnected tunnels and vast chambers, hewn from living rock and adorned with crystalline formations that pulse with their own inner light. Here, both refugees from the surface wars and those born in darkness live in harmony, their pale skin adapted to the gentle glow of their phosphorescent environment. The architecture defies surface logic: spiraling towers that grow downward, bridges that span bottomless chasms, and gardens where luminous plants create constellations in the stone sky. Water flows in impossible directions, following channels carved by generations of patient hands. The air carries whispers of ancient wisdom and the soft chiming of crystal wind chimes that mark the passage of their own temporal rhythms. These underground dwellers have developed their own culture, one that embraces both the contemplative nature of the night people and the industrious spirit of the day folk, creating something entirely new in the depths of the earth. The sterile corridors of Geneva's International Medical Institute buzzed with unprecedented activity. Dr. Elena Vasquez stood before the holographic display showing humanity's bifurcated sleep patterns, her weathered hands trembling slightly as she processed the implications. The data was undeniable. Within 18 months, every human on Earth had locked into either extreme diurnal or nocturnal cycles, with zero overlap. "We're witnessing the fastest evolutionary adaptation in recorded history," she whispered to her colleague, Dr. James Chen, whose pale complexion betrayed his recent conversion to the nocturnal faction. Around them, medical teams worked frantically to understand the physiological changes: enhanced night vision in nocturnals, increased vitamin D synthesis in diurnals, and completely restructured circadian rhythms in both groups. The emergency medical protocols were already being rewritten. Hospitals now operated in parallel shifts, with diurnal doctors treating diurnal patients during daylight hours, while nocturnal medical staff cared for their own kind through the night. The emergency alarm pierced the night as Dr. Chen rushed to Trauma Bay 7. A diurnal construction worker lay unconscious, severe head trauma from a scaffolding collapse during day shift. The problem: his circadian system was flooding his body with cortisol and adrenaline exactly when it should be winding down for sleep. Dr. Chen's nocturnal adapted hands moved carefully in the harsh surgical lights. "His body thinks it's supposed to be sleeping," she called to her team. "Every stitch I make, his system fights to shut down." How do you save someone whose biology considers your best efforts a mistake? Dr. Vasquez stared at the genetic markers flickering on her screen, knowing that humanity had crossed a biological threshold from which there might be no return. The great educational divide had crystallized into two distinct worlds of learning. Dawn Academy rose with the sun, its glass corridors flooding with golden morning light as day children absorbed lessons in mathematics and engineering. Their minds, synchronized with circadian rhythms, processed analytical concepts with remarkable clarity during peak daylight hours. Teachers moved with purposeful energy, their voices carrying the optimism of sunrise across laboratories where young hands built tomorrow's infrastructure. Miles away, Twilight Institute awakened as shadows lengthened. Night children gathered in softly lit chambers where creativity flourished under artificial stars. Their curriculum embraced the arts, philosophy, and intuitive sciences, subjects that bloomed in darkness like nocturnal flowers. Holographic displays painted ethereal patterns across walls, while students explored abstract concepts that seemed to whisper secrets only the night could understand. The scheduling alone had become a logistical marvel. While day children slept, night maintenance crews transformed shared spaces, adjusting lighting spectrums and temperature controls. 10-year-old Alex pressed his face against the transition airlock window, watching night children his age laugh and create art in the Twilight Institute studios. He was supposed to report to Dawn Academy in 20 minutes for advanced mathematics, but his heart pulled toward those glowing sculptures and whispered poetry sessions. His mother's voice echoed, "You're day-born, Alex. That's your destiny." But what if destiny felt wrong? His hand hovered over the door release. One choice would lead him to his assigned path. The other would make him an outcast from both worlds. The hallway timer showed 19 minutes. No child from opposing cycles would ever cross paths in these hallowed halls. But what if one tried? The buildings themselves had evolved, smart structures that breathed with the rhythm of their inhabitants, ensuring each temporal tribe received education perfectly calibrated to their biological destiny. 2 schools, 1 future, forever separated by the inexorable march of time. In the sprawling underground data centers of Neo-Singapore, the hum of quantum servers never ceases. Here, the technological umbilical cord connecting day and night peoples pulses with petabytes of information, creating a digital bridge across time itself. Holographic displays float in the sterile air, casting ethereal blue light across the faces of both Solari technicians and Nocturnali engineers working in synchronized shifts. The massive quantum array at the chamber's heart processes real-time translations between the evolving dialects of each civilization, while neural link interfaces allow for instantaneous thought transmission across temporal boundaries. Advanced hibernation pods line the walls, where volunteers from both societies undergo consciousness transfers, experiencing life through the other's eyes. The technology is elegant yet alien. Crystalline storage matrices that capture not just data, but emotion, cultural memory, and the very essence of what it means to be human. As morning approaches, the Solari team prepares to hand control to their Nocturnali counterparts, the exchange facilitated by AI mediators that have learned to interpret not just language, but the subtle nuances of 2 diverging human consciousnesses. This is humanity's last desperate attempt to maintain unity through silicon and light, a technological lifeline thrown across the growing chasm of time. The Capitol building stands divided, literally and figuratively. Emergency session chambers buzz with heated debate as representatives from both factions clash over resource allocation and territorial rights. Senator Maya Chen's golden eyes blazed as she faced her nocturnal counterpart across the divided chamber. Your people consume 12% more energy per capita, yet contribute nothing to infrastructure maintenance. Her enhanced metabolism made her voice carry like a solar flare. Victor Reeves rose slowly, his pale form almost ghostly in the chamber's mixed lighting. "Senator, your people lock us out of the economy for 16 hours a day. We take the energy we need because you deny us the means to earn it." The chamber fell silent. 20 years of partnership hung in the balance. Maya's fist struck the podium. "Then maybe it's time we stopped pretending we're still the same species." Across the aisle, Nocturnal Alliance leader Victor Reeves counters with data on discriminatory daylight business practices that exclude night dwellers from economic participation. The chamber's adaptive lighting system flickers between warm and cool tones, struggling to accommodate both groups simultaneously. Security personnel wear dual-spectrum visors, their nervous tension palpable as voices rise to near shouting. Outside, protesters from both communities gather in separate areas. Day people beneath sun umbrellas, night people under portable shade structures. Their chants create a discordant symphony of division. News drones circle overhead, streaming the chaos to a world watching its democratic institutions strain under unprecedented biological and social pressures. The Speaker of the House, one of the few remaining neutral politicians, calls for order, but her words are lost in the growing cacophony. This isn't just political theater, it's the sound of a civilization fracturing along temporal lines, with each side convinced the other threatens their very survival. The old world structures crumbled like sandcastles before the tide of biological revolution. Within a single generation, humanity had fractured into two distinct civilizations, each adapted to their temporal domain. The Solari emerged as the inheritors of traditional power, their golden skin gleaming in boardrooms flooded with natural light, their enhanced metabolism driving unprecedented innovation in renewable energy and agriculture. Meanwhile, the Nocturnals carved out their own empire in the shadows, their pale, luminescent forms moving through neon-lit underground cities with predatory grace. Their heightened night vision and altered brain chemistry made them masters of information warfare, cryptocurrency, and the digital realm. Commerce became a delicate dance of scheduled exchanges, solar markets closing as lunar exchanges opened, each civilization's peak hours perfectly offset. 14-year-old Zara sat between her parents in the genetic counselor's office, their hands no longer touching. Her Solari father's golden skin caught the afternoon light streaming through the window, while her nocturnal mother remained carefully in the shadows, her pale luminescence dim with sorrow. "The modification process is irreversible," Dr. Kim explained gently. "You can join your father's people in the sun or your mother's people in the night, but you cannot remain as you are." Zara looked at her own normal, unmodified hands, still human in a world that no longer had room for the naturally human. "What if I choose neither?" she whispered. Her parents exchanged a glance that held 20 years of love and the weight of biological destiny. The old concept of a unified humanity became as obsolete as the 24-hour workday. Two species now shared one planet, their interactions governed by the ancient rhythm of day and night, yet more alien to each other than their common ancestors could have ever imagined. In the depths of a converted subway station, something extraordinary was happening. Maya's fingers danced across holographic interfaces, while above, Marcus coordinated with surface teams through quantum-encrypted channels. The old barriers between Solari and Nocturnals were dissolving in the face of shared purpose. Around them, a mixed crew of engineers worked in unprecedented harmony, some squinting through tinted visors, others energized by the artificial twilight of their workspace. Maya's fingers flew across the holographic interface when the first readings came through. Marcus, are you seeing this? Her voice caught with disbelief. On the quantum display, neural pathways were actually reconnecting, solar and nocturnal brain patterns synchronizing for the first time in decades. But Dr. Chen's voice crackled with warning. The temporal locks are fighting back. Security protocols are trying to shut us down. Through the facility's reinforced windows, Maya could see enforcement drones gathering. They had minutes before the authorities discovered their illegal experiments. "We can save this," Marcus said, his pale hands dancing over the emergency backup systems. "But someone has to stay behind to maintain the connection." Maya looked at him, understanding. One of them would have to choose exile to preserve what they'd built. They had discovered that the neural adaptations weren't irreversible. They were complementary. The Solari's enhanced vitamin D synthesis could be temporarily boosted in nocturnals, while the night dwellers' superior melatonin production could benefit their day-dwelling counterparts. As Maya and Marcus stood side by side, watching their combined team celebrate, the city's artificial dawn began to shift. For the first time in decades, the light cycles started to blend, creating gradual transitions that both communities could share. The Great Division wasn't ending. It was evolving into something neither side had imagined possible. Unity wasn't about becoming the same. It was about celebrating the strength found in difference. Perhaps the Great Schism taught us what we had forgotten in our rush toward unity. That diversity of experience enriches the whole. The day people brought structure and progress, while the night people preserved mystery and introspection. In their separation, they discovered that humanity's strength had never been in sameness, but in the beautiful tension between different ways of being. Today, as we stand at the threshold between their worlds, some of us naturally drawn to dawn's first light, others to midnight's quiet embrace. We carry within us the wisdom of both tribes. We have learned that division need not mean discord, and that even in our differences, we remain connected by something deeper than the rhythms that once tore us apart. Our shared capacity to adapt, to grow, and to find meaning in whatever light we choose to call home.